My brothers and sisters, 20 years ago, I was privileged to pastor a parish on the north side of Chicago. I still stay in contact with some of those folks. And just after Easter, I received a rather humorous email from Tom, a young father whose son, Sam, I had baptized 8 years ago. Tom and Sam had been to Sunday Mass, where the homily had seemed a bit mystifying. On their way home, Tom turned to his son standing on the sidewalk and asked, "Sam, to whom do you think Father was speaking this morning? Was he talking to the grown-ups or was he talking to the kids?" Sam pondered this question for a moment or two and then answered brightly, "I think he was talking to himself." While talking to oneself is regrettably an occupational hazard of preachers, I trust that I'm able to speak for all of you and for myself as well, as I congratulate Father Mark Francis on his selection as the 7th president of Catholic Theological Union. During the years we shared in Rome, I worked beside Father Francis in the governance of the Union of Superiors General, and in 2005, participated with him as a member of the 11th Ordinary Session of the Synod of Bishops, which contemplated the great gift of the Eucharist. I'm also very grateful to call Father Francis my friend, and I rejoice that his formidable gifts are now placed at the service of the Church through the mission of this great institution. My own religious family, the Redemptorist Missionaries, is one of the 24 sponsoring communities of this union. And the experience as a Redemptorist of 40 years of vowed life colors these brief remarks. So does 35 years of priesthood and 3 years of episcopal ministry. In a special way, the gift of serving the Redemptorists and consecrated life at the international level leads me to describe the greatest challenge facing religious today, as well as the unique service that can be provided by the Catholic Theological Union. I believe that there is a broad anxiety among consecrated people concerning their identity. In an age that is characterized by rapid and fundamental changes in both the church and society, consecrated people ask, who are we? What really distinguishes our vocation? Where do we fit in? For a number of reasons, I believe that the ecclesial sense of consecrated life is the biggest challenge faced by sisters, brothers, and religious priests. Let me use a couple of contrasting experiences to illustrate my point. Part of my service as Superior General of the Redemptorists was visiting my brothers in the 78 countries where we minister. The visit to a local community often included a courtesy call to the local bishop. While there were some difficult conversations, most of these encounters were rather pleasant. I recall that a number of ordinaries would want to assure me of their appreciation for the service of the Redemptorists in the local church entrusted to their care. And they would often use words like this: "Father General, I'm very grateful for your confreres. They are very cooperative with the diocese. In fact, unless I think about it, I can't really distinguish them from the diocesan clergy." What was good news for the local ordinary did not have the same effect on me. On the other hand, the years in our General Council, as well as work in the Holy See, gave me almost daily contact with men and women religious from across the world. This relationship provoked in me some anxiety regarding the enduring presence of what the instruction Mutuae Relationis calls a serious error. I refer to an exaggerated juxtaposition between religious life and the structures of the church, as if they could subsist as two distinct realities, one charismatic, the other institutional. Rather, both elements, namely the spiritual gifts and the ecclesial structures, form what Lumen Gentium calls one, even though complex, reality. There have been some unfortunate declarations by those who identify themselves as spokespersons for the prophetic church, which of necessity must oppose the pastors. A deficient theological formation on the nature of the church, a deficiency which by all means is not limited to religious, leads to a distorted ecclesiological vision. As a result, a false dichotomy replaces the one, even though complex, reality. And we should recognize that this exaggerated juxtaposition flourishes in the absence of structures for mutual knowledge and respectful dialogue among bishops and consecrated women and men. Beyond its rapport with the pastoral office of the church, religious life today must rethink its identity in relationship to the laity, who constitute the vast majority of the church, and whose baptismal vocation is both the source of their dignity as well as the motivation for their mission in the world. For many decades, we religious have asked ourselves how we might empower the laity. The laity will not need our permission to minister, and religious must ask ourselves, what will be our witness in a massively lay church? The apostolic exhortation that followed the special synod on the laity affirms, in church communion, the states of life, by being ordered one to the other, are thus bound together among themselves. They all share in a deeply basic meaning, that of being the manner of living out the commonly shared Christian dignity and the universal call to holiness in the perfection of love. They are different, yet complementary. I believe that one of the gifts that the Catholic Theological Union can offer the church is to help her develop a theology of religious life that better understands where religious fit. In the absence of such a resource, there is a tendency to reduce consecrated life either to a base pragmatism that envisions religious simply as providers of specific services in a local church, or to a checklist of traditional mores that may or may not be adequately sustained by an authentic theology. The Magisterium has offered us great gifts in his declarations from Perfecte Caritatis to Vita Consacrata, but there still is work to be done. Beyond academic speculation, the particular composition of the faculty and student body of this institution can make it a sort of laboratory of communion, which addresses the interests and gifts of religious, seminarians, and lay students, while underscoring the ways in which these particular vocations may complement one another. An essential element for such a laboratory is a respect, even reverential environment, which supports and encourages all the different vocations that enrich this school. Finally, I never say in conclusion, because someone once defined second wind as what happens when a Redemptor says in conclusion. Finally, I recall with Father Mark something that we saw together in Rome. Facing the Basilica of St. John Lateran is a large statue of St. Francis of Assisi with his arms outstretched. If you stand behind the statue at a certain distance, it looks as if St. Francis is holding up the church. This recalls the dream of Pope Innocent III in 1209, when he saw the church upheld by the arms of Francis. The location of the statue also recalls the number of days that the Pope Innocent kept the friars waiting outside the door. He was not sure whether to meet the bedraggled visitors from Umbria. Finally, the dream, as well as the influence of his confessor, helped Innocent to overcome his scruples and meet the friars. Like the disciple John, who stood before the empty tomb waiting for Peter, Francis and his companions hung in there, waiting before the facade of the Mother Church of all Christendom, waiting for its pastor to meet them so that they could enter together. The work of the Catholic Theological Union can help religious better understand that our way of life is part of the organic communion with the whole Church, which is continuously enriched by the Spirit with a variety of ministries and charisms. CTU can also help us to wait. Last spring, another Francis, who is both pastor and a consecrated person, met with the leaders of religious life from Latin America and the Caribbean. An official transcript of his remarks made by Pope Francis during his hour-long audience with the leaders of CLAR has been published and, perhaps significantly, has never been denied by the Vatican. According to the transcript, Pope Francis exhorted the religious, "Say you err or make a blunder, it happens. Maybe you'll receive a letter from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, saying that they were told this or that thing. But don't let it bother you. Explain what you have to explain, but keep going forward. Open doors. Do something where life is calling out to you." As I renew my congratulations to my friend, Father Mark Francis, as well as to the administration, faculty, and student body of the Catholic Theological Union, I pray that this great institution will enrich the Church by helping consecrated men and women do something where life is calling us, and to live fully the grandeur of our vocation. Thanks be to God.